Hi viewers, Purple Celery here, a big gold star to you for clicking on this video. This week I'll be reviewing episode 6 of season 11 of Doctor Who, Demons of the Punjab. This week's episode, Demons of the Punjab, sees the Doctor and her TARDIS team travel back in time to 1947 to the partitioning of India and Pakistan, where they meet Yaz's Nan when she's a young woman. Now, the last couple of episodes of Doctor Who have been a bit bog standard, and I was really hoping that this week would just lift a bit, would just pack that punch. So, did it? I've got to say, not really, and I'm screwing up my face here just like the 13th Doctor. If I had to describe this episode in 3 words, it would be dull but worthy. So this time period sounded really interesting, and when the Doctor began talking about how millions of people were displaced, 1 million people died, I was like, wow, okay, that sounds interesting. I want to find out more about this. I think this is the first Doctor Who historical that has been set in a non-Western civilization, which is great. I do want to see more of that. Ultimately though, it felt like I wasn't watching Doctor Who. It felt like I was watching a mildly interesting period piece with some science fiction elements thrown into it. I did love the concept of Yaz discovering that the man that her grandma is marrying is not her grandfather, and I think that in itself has great potential for drama, great potential for a Doctor Who episode. It sets up like a really interesting dilemma. Should the Doctor and Yaz and the rest of the TARDIS team interfere and break up the marriage so it means that Yaz could live? Or do they let Yaz's Nan go ahead and marry this wonderful man, even if it means that Yaz ultimately doesn't exist? I think that in itself is like a great moral dilemma that could be explored further, maybe in fanfic or a future episode. Ultimately, however, I felt for me personally this episode was a bit too slow and predictable. Once it was established that the aliens, what was the name, the Thagarians were witnesses rather than assassins, it felt like the main threat was neutralised. I didn't feel from that point on that the TARDIS team or anybody was in any real danger. And yes, I know there was the general conflict because of the partitioning happening in the background, and towards the end we saw Yaz's Nan and her mum and Prem under threat. But I just didn't really get that sense of tension. It felt like once we found out the aliens were just witnesses, the TARDIS team just sort of stood around and watched things unfold. I also felt like it was a bit too predictable that Prem's brother Manesh was the one responsible for killing the holy man. I actually guessed that halfway through the episode. It wasn't really a major twist or a very interesting twist. I just thought it was too predictable. There was also what I thought was a major plot hole in this episode. I'm sure that you guys have probably picked it up as well. Namely, why didn't Yaz's Nan remember her from her past? She didn't seem particularly senile back in the present day. I think maybe it would have worked better if there had been some quick explanation. For example, the Doctor gave her a memory wipe or something. But yeah, for me that was just a major plot hole and a bit of weak writing just there. Or else maybe it would have worked better if Yaz's Nan had actually remembered her and then she just revealed it to Yaz at the end. As for the characters, I thought the first half of this episode was better because the Doctor and the TARDIS team actually had things to do. For example, one of my favourite scenes was the Doctor building that machine. I thought that was great, and it really spoke to the 13th Doctor's inventive, creative nature. I'd really like to see more scenes of the Doctor being like MacGyver and building these ingenious devices. I loved Graham in this episode. He really is the voice of wisdom. He and Yaz actually had a conversation, yes. Finally, after 6 episodes, they actually had a whole scene to themselves. I also liked how the Doctor and Ryan got a bit of one-on-one interaction as well. I just liked Graham overall in this episode, especially his speech to Prem at the end about how Prem was a good man. I thought that was lovely acting by Bradley Walsh. But ultimately though, as I sort of indicated before, the second half fell a bit flat for me because The TARDIS team just stood around. It didn't really seem like they had much to do. It wasn't even like Rosa, where they were actively trying to correct history to get history back on course from somebody who was trying to change things. It just felt like they were witnesses, basically. So I'm aware that I may well get flamed for this, but I think I actually liked last week's episode, the Saranga Conundrum, better than this episode, just because it felt more like Doctor Who. Having said that, this episode wasn't a bad episode, but ultimately for me it just felt a bit dull. So therefore I would give Demons of the Punjab 6 out of 10. The good news, however, is that next week's episode, Kerblam, looks a lot more interesting, so I'm looking forward to it. I'm hoping that this mid-season slump will end here and now, and that things will get back on track. But as always, I would love to hear what you guys think. Did you love this episode? Did you think it was like the best Doctor Who episode? I would love to hear your thoughts and comments, even if you don't, think the same as me. So please leave your comments below. If you've enjoyed watching this, give it a like, subscribe to my channel, and I will see everybody next week for Kerblam. Until then, this is Purple Celery, over and out.